I just saw your video, Problems with the Satanic Bible, and I'd like to speak specifically about LaVey's entry on psychic vampires. You interpreted the term psychic vampire to mean the homeless, but I don't think that's accurate. If you read the entry carefully, LaVey talks about a person who you feel obligated to call or visit out of a sense of guilt, someone who gives you gifts in order to make you feel indebted to them, and someone who may be a lover, friend, or employer. It's pretty clear to me that he's not talking about a social class, but rather a personality type. Specifically, LaVey was talking about the types of people who are manipulative and emotionally abusive in interpersonal relationships. Many self-help figures have adopted the term emotional vampire to describe a certain type of emotional abuser. As a primer, I've linked to two Mark Manson articles, one addressed to emotional vampires and one addressed to others to help them protect themselves. I found the entry on psychic vampires to be the most helpful and valuable part of the Satanic Bible. I have been in relationships with men who are emotionally abusive, and the description of psychic vampires helped me recognize what was going on. It perfectly tracks the warning signs and the cycle of abuse. There are 4 stages in the cycle of abuse. Those are calm, tension building, incident, and reconciliation. When an abusive relationship is first starting, an abuser is very sweet because they wouldn't be able to trap someone if they started the abuse on the first date. The abuser is over the top and showering the target with affection and praise and adoration. Some have described this as love bombing, a tactic that cults use to lure in targets. LaVey described this pretty accurately. Their adulation and dependence upon you may at first be very flattering, and their material gifts very attractive, but you will eventually find yourself paying for them many times over. Part of the goal is to rapidly escalate the level of commitment so it's harder for the victim to leave when the other shoe drops. This happened to me. I met my ex on March 10th and moved in with him on May 1st of that very same year. That is way too fast. That is a red flag. Make sure to take relationships at a reasonable, slow pace. Don't get entangled with joint accounts and shared living situations before you're really certain you know a person very well. Another red flag when a relationship is first starting is when the person claims all my exes are crazy. It's unlikely that they're that unlucky. Consider whose side you're hearing. They are the common denominator. My ex did that, and I came to realize only when it was too late that the reason all his girlfriends left him was because his outrageous behavior was driving them away, not because they were all crazy bitches. Abusers will flatter you by telling you that you are special or different, not like all those other women or men, to make you feel obligated to prove yourself to them. And again, LaVey flagged that behavior as a warning sign. Therefore, be wary of anyone who seems to have no real friends and no apparent interest in life except you. He will usually tell you he is very selective in his choice of friends, or doesn't make friends easily because of the high standards he sets for his companions. But he will hasten to add that you fulfill every requirement and are truly an outstanding exception among men. You are one of the few worthy of his friendship. Once the love bombing phase is over, the next step in an abusive relationship is isolation. Abusers often mess with their victims' heads, deny their behavior, make false accusations, blame the victim, and so on. The only way to get a person to doubt themselves like that is to cut the person off from second opinions and other people who can corroborate what really happened. Cutting off the victim's contact with friends and family also makes it harder for the victim to escape once the abuse starts. Abusers do this in a number of ways. Sometimes it's possessive jealousy, where they'll freak out if you spend time with others. Sometimes they will make false accusations that your loved ones did and said bad things to make you wary of them. And again, LaVey describes this perfectly. He will do everything he can to stir up trouble and disharmony between his victim and those people he holds dear. Then the abuser gets needy. It comes on gradually, so slowly that the victim becomes acclimated to the situation and doesn't necessarily realize how much it has deteriorated. My ex sat around while I had to financially support him. Not only was he chronically unemployed. He didn't do anything around the house, so I had to do all the cleaning, the laundry, the dishes, etc., which was tough when I was also trying to earn all the rent and pay all the bills. And he needed constant attention and validation. He would pout when I left to buy groceries or go to work or go to school because I was abandoning him and he needed me to care for him. His excuses and promises to improve seemed reasonable at first. I'm having trouble finding a new job. The AC is broken, so it's too hot to do work around the house. He had a litany of hypochondriac health issues that conveniently prevented him from being able to do anything. He was emotionally vulnerable because all his past relationships with those mean, crazy women left him that way. I was a sucker, and I felt sorry for him, and I kept trying to drag his dead weight on and on and on. Again, LaVey's description is accurate to a T. They merely accept these poor souls as being less fortunate than themselves, and feel they must help them however they can. It is this misdirected sense of responsibility or unfounded sense of guilt which nourishes well the altruisms upon which these parasites feast. A lot of people wonder why women who are abused or mistreated keep returning to men who treat them so terribly, and overwhelmingly it's because they feel sorry for them. They want to help heal and nurture and rescue this deeply troubled man with the power of their love. Abusers target the type of people who are altruistic, who are compassionate, who are caring and generous, and deliberately take advantage of that. LaVey recognizes this as well. The psychic vampire is allowed to exist because he cleverly chooses conscientious, responsible people for his victims, people with great dedication to their moral obligations. But the longer it wore on, the more I realized he wasn't going to improve. There would always be some reason he couldn't help, and I couldn't possibly keep doing everything by myself. So I tried to stop carrying the entire burden, hoping that he would adjust and start to pick up some of the slack. And that is when he snapped. That's when we entered the third phase and the actual abuse started. LaVey, again, has it pegged. When they feel you falling from their clutches, two things will happen. First, they will act crushed, hoping your old feeling of duty and sympathy will return, and when and if it doesn't, they will show their true colors and will become angry and vindictive. The final phase of the cycle is reconciliation. This is when the abuser starts to deny or minimize what they've done, blame or accuse the victim, make excuses. One of the scariest things about abusers is they are remarkably effective at casting themselves as the victim. In fact, abusers will make their victims believe that the abuse itself is why you should feel sorry for them, why they need your help. They get their victims to believe that they are damaged and emotionally disturbed. The fact that they are having these angry outbursts just indicates how much they need love and care and understanding in order to heal. LaVey pointed this out as well. A large percentage of these people have special attributes which make their dependence upon you more feasible and much more effective. Many psychic vampires are invalids or pretend to be, or are mentally or emotionally disturbed. Others might feign ignorance or incompetence, so you will, out of pity, do things for them. You said that the urge toward compassion and to help those who are less fortunate is a good one and should be nourished. But be careful. That can make you vulnerable. It can get you taken advantage of. It can make you a target. Men can be abused and women can be abusers every bit as much as the other way around. Abuse is more than just physical violence. It can take many forms. It can be verbal insults designed to tear apart your self-esteem. It can be threats to commit suicide if you leave. It can be filing false police reports against you. It can be faking a pregnancy to try to force you into a shotgun marriage. And it's not just in intimate or romantic relationships. It can be relatives, people at work, people who pretend to be your friends. I have former friends I now recognize as psychic vampires who took advantage of my generous nature and milked and exploited my sense of pity and compassion. Just because someone seems to need your help doesn't mean they deserve it. Just because someone has been hurt doesn't mean they have the right to hurt you. Make sure that you always have self-respect. Never do something for someone else that you would never ask anyone else to do for you.